Hello, hello. I am playing around with my lighting as we get started, which is not the most professional thing to do, but hey, you know what? Here we are. It is a Sunday evening, and I want to get into two more letters of our A to Z paranormal blog challenge. I'm gonna turn my volume down. I've got a brand new mic right now, so still figuring out a little bit. And there we go. That's sounding better to me. Hopefully, it sounds okay for you guys. Definitely let me know in the chat if the mic is picking up or not. And so today we're diving into the letter I, the mystical, magical letter I. I had a tough time trying to come up with what exactly, not too many words start out with I. I would love to talk about the Illuminati. I thought that would have been a cool one, but of course, then basically I would be shut off as a human being. My identity would be erased far too easily, and yeah, the stakes are just too high. I need more viewers at least before I'm gonna give it all up. People that would still be able to vouch for me in the future once my social security card number gets wiped away. So I always like to start out. We were going to talk about Irish legends and lore, and I wanted to get into all of it. I wanted to span the country, and turns out when you're talking about all of the legends and just interesting weirdness associated with an entire country, it takes a while. It takes a while to learn a lot because that's not something that I inherently knew a lot about. Therefore, that I missed yesterday, and that's why I'm going to do two today. And I'm going to try to get two episodes in back to back, just about back to back. I'll have a small break before Game of Thrones because I know this is Game of Thrones premiere night, final season, and it would be foolish of me to think that I can compete with that. I don't have amazing CGI dragons or any of the other more awesome and also not YouTube appropriate features that that show can boast. Before we get into the Irish legends, I always do like to talk about a recent comment because What's Your Ghost Story is all about building that paranormal community. So this came up just yesterday. It was on a video I posted back in 2008, but I think we actually recorded it a long time earlier. I used to work for a TV show here in Chicago called, I'm in Madison right now, so there in Chicago, called Metro Mix, the TV show. It was a weekly entertainment-oriented half-hour show about what's going on in Chicago, whether it's live concerts or new movies opening or new restaurants. It was a lot of fun. Great show to work on. Well, naturally, they wanted me to do a series on haunted places in Chicago. So I covered Robinson Woods Indian Burial Ground in Norridge, Illinois. And before people get upset and say Native American or First Nations, that's the proper noun. That's what it's actually listed as if we were to look at a map. Indian Burial Ground. And because, that was before the PC era. There's, first off, in this short bit on CLTV, which again, this is back in 2008 is when I uploaded the video, but I think it was a couple of years before that we aired it. Maybe even several years before that. It's hard to get a very big, complex story in a short news segment. And I was, I guess off camera, behind the scenes, I was telling the story about how, the deer in this area are so acclimated to human encounters. The O'Hare Airport is nearby. There's a 4-lane divided, busier street, River Road, nearby. And all of this, it doesn't faze them. They're just so used to it now that when something paranormal happens and all of the deer go running for their lives, that's remarkable. That gets into the idea that animals can pick up on energy, paranormal experiences. And so we had, if you have my book, Voices from the Chicago Grave, you get the full long story. I might try to get that story in as one of the episodes of this show that we're doing. But I'm not going to get into it because it is a long story. So it was maybe a little bit sloppily put together. I did not do the editing or writing on this feature, on that segment. So there's kind of mention of the deer, but they maybe they don't explain it super well. But a guy named Scott Pendergrass commented, "Word to the wise from a great friend to the native people. To you, they're deer, and that's just fine, bud. But they are known amongst the initiated as skinwalkers. Think about this good." That is a wonderfully ominous warning that deer. So something that I do take seriously, of course, is and I think it just colors my personal experience there even more, is that there's Native American belief that that a chief could get reincarnated into a mighty buck. And we work with the family a lot at Robinson Woods Indian Burial Ground. It's the Chief Alexander Robinson, and again, I'll get way more into this at a later episode. But the fact that is, we work with the family, and Dan Malone, who is a Chicago archaeologist, we've done just such extensive work at this location. Once upon a time, to me, it was the one place I could go and every single time have something paranormal happen. But the more I spent time there, and the more I worked with him and worked with the family, and we did a lot of things to raise awareness of this important site and this important family and this important man, Alexander Robinson. And then even to the point of helping recover the tombstones that had been lost and were kind of forgotten about in a dusty warehouse in Springfield, Illinois. We're able to return those to the family. It's funny that ever since I began being more active, and not in the ghost hunting side, but in the realness, the physical place, understanding the history, all of it more, paranormal activity stopped there entirely. And it wasn't negative to me to begin with entirely. Sometimes it was. Sometimes it felt very uncomfortable there. But ever since I've spent more time there, I don't know if it's the same for everybody, if maybe the place is just not as active, or if whatever energy there, whatever entities are there, their communication with me is different because they know me now. They know I'm on the inside, that I'm a good guy. Either way, let's head over to across the pond, and we are going to take a look at some Irish legends. So again, I thought it would be great to talk about. I want to talk about ghost stories as always, but I thought since I'm going to cover a country that I really don't know a lot about when it comes to the paranormal, let's look at every element of it I can find, including cryptids and UFOs. And of course, we will. It turned out it was really hard to find a modern era ghost story because this place has just so many legends that date back. I kind of redefined a modern ghost story as something that happened in the 1800s or later, because so many of the legends were from the 1400s or 1300s, all the great wars that went on, and of course, all of the folkloric belief. And I'm just going to jump right in to one of their more well-known, although there aren't many claims of Bigfoot type creatures, at least not that I was able to find. So there's not a lot of cryptids out there, but there is one. Oh, shit, I don't have the photos with me, but the water dog or water hound. The name is Dobhar Chew or Dobhar Chew. Again, getting into the Irish and Gaelic pronunciations and names, you are not going to hear me say any city names or town names other than Dublin, which comes up a lot actually, which is fortunate. But so many of the places are just, I need a degree, I need a doctorate even just to like stammer through some of these words. But the water dog is this legendary cryptid that seems to be, they also call it the king otter. It seems to be a blend of a dog and an otter. So it's something that lives and swims in the water, lives underwater. Apparently they swim in packs too. So you won't really come across one alone, which makes it even scarier. But yeah, on the face of it, it sounds like, oh, maybe it's just some undocumented animal out there that we just haven't cataloged yet. But in 1684, see, being in America, I'm assuming it's going to be 1800s, but no, 1684, there was actually documented an eyewitness killing of a woman who was down by a river washing clothes. And her husband was somewhere nearby, and he heard her scream. He ran down to the riverbank and saw this creature standing on top of his wife, who is now dead, and being eaten by this creature, by this water hound, this otter dog. And he went and he attacked it and killed it. But while he was doing that, one of the other ones that was nearby came out and attacked him. They fought and battled and tussled, and he ended up winning the battle. This story lives on so much because The water dog, or the Dobar Chew, is actually depicted on this woman's gravesite. And you can go there to this day in Ireland. I'll have to find, actually, I'm missing some of the details, but I could, if you're watching this on a replay later, I'll post a link in the description, and you can click over to see. It's actually very difficult to see exactly what it is. I think some of the headstone is worn away, some of the gravestone is worn away, but apparently this mythical creature was depicted on this gravesite. There's actually a great, I wasn't even planning on talking about this, but it's, speaking of interesting graves in Ireland, there's a story of a woman who, since I wasn't planning on talking about this, I'm going to not have any details. But again, long ago, she passed away, and she was buried with a very expensive ring on. And word got out among the grave digging and grave robbing population that this woman was buried with a very expensive ring. So after she was put to rest, somebody dug her up, exhumed her body, could not pull the ring off of her finger. So, she's dead already. Just cut the finger off. And as he went to do that, and as he started to cut her finger off, she woke up, screamed bloody murder, scared the crap out of the guy, out of the grave robber. And it turned out that she was just in some sort of a paralysis type state. And thank God that grave robber came along. And you would think that this may be just an urban legend. There's so many urban legends involving being buried alive. Her gravesite actually says, "Died once, buried twice," on the gravestone itself. So I want to talk about tulpas. Comes up. This is the idea that if you believe in something enough, or you concentrate on something enough, focus it, even if you're not intentionally trying to do it, you can perhaps manifest something. And I'm going to tell an Irish ghost story that involves perhaps a tulpa. And this comes from the host of the See You on the Other Side podcast. And you can see this recounted in its entirety. If you go to See You on the Other Side, or othersidepodcast.com/blog, and scroll down, they are also doing the A to Z challenge. And they are the ones that inspired me to do the A to Z challenge under the letter K for kissing the Blarney Stone. You could get a link to a recording where they talk about this, but also a more in-depth description, but I'm going to read a portion of it. So Mike Huberty is his name. He was with his, at the time, girlfriend in 2008 at the Blarney Castle, which again is where you would go to kiss the Blarney Stone. So reading from his blog entry, and eventually I'll be reading from his journal. Surrounding the castle is a beautiful park where there are big rock formations they call a rock close. It's a rock shelter, it's a close. They have some old caves that they call Druid's Caves and the Witch's Kitchen. There's some fun folklore about how a witch used to be trapped in the stone during the day and only comes out at night, but sometimes you can still see the embers of her flame from the night before burning in her kitchen. But the most interesting section is the wishing stairs, a stairway where you're supposed to walk up and down it backwards with your eyes closed and focus on a wish. If you succeed in doing so, your wish will come true within a year. And the next bit is coming from a journal he kept while he was on his journey, on his vacation. And he had just interviewed Nick Redfern, who was a tremendous paranormal author, covering all things mystical, I guess you would say, supernatural, just unknown. Nick Redfern, look him up. He's got some really fantastic things in his books. In his most recent book, this was written in 2008, Redfern talks about interviewing an old witch who told him about these creatures called cormons. That's Cormons. They were summoned to our world centuries ago by British magicians. See, even English, I can't quite get. So Gaelic, I'd have no shot. And Irish occultists who were looking to protect the Isles from foreign marauders like the Vikings. These cormons were supposed to appear in the darkest fears of the attackers, usually with glowing red eyes. And they come out there to defend the island. But the magicians and occultists were slaughtered, and the cormons were free to roam the land, free of our fearful emotions. He speculates that UFOs, ghost sightings, and other monsters were these cormons who use our fear as a pathway from their dimension to ours. We're getting very woo-woo, but I love anytime you can throw a theory out there. It's really fun and fascinating to me. So he was Mike was telling his story, telling this theory about the cormons to his girlfriend, who's now his wife. And what an interesting idea it was. And she said, how scary would it be if that big black wolf from Neverending Story would just appear right now? Which, if you guys remember that movie, and especially as a kid watching it, that was terrifying. And just then, a shape appeared in the pathway about 100 yards from us. I took a couple of blurry pictures and adrenaline rushed through our veins. It looked like it could be a wolf from the distance, but as we approached it slowly, it took the form of a black cat and then jumped into the bushes before we could get a really good look at it. And there is at othersidepodcast.com/blog, there is the photos, or a photo that he took at this moment. We never really saw its eyes, so we don't know if it was one of these red-eyed creatures he was talking about. We never really saw its eyes, but we looked around for where it jumped to and didn't see anything. We couldn't believe what we'd just seen after we were just talking about it, and it couldn't have been written any better. Now, if you remember back, I was talking about the wishing stairs, where you walk up and down the stairs with your eyes closed, and you make a wish, you focus on this wish, and it could come true. At that time, she was thinking about back home, back here in Wisconsin, about their black cat, Mr. Spock. And it's so funny that she was focusing on this thought, and meanwhile, this animal appeared in front of them out of nowhere. Really a wild thing. And I love talking about the idea of thought creation, that especially when you have a whole bunch of people aware of an item, an object, an entity, that perhaps we can use psychically, whether we're intending to or not, create something in a location. It was also funny at that time, she was wondering about if she should take this job at a pet clinic, a cat clinic. And it's interesting that Mike, when he saw it, he thought it was a wolf, but she saw a little black cat. So it's interesting that they saw slightly different things. However, the photograph shows something that's more in line with a cat. And we'll be talking about another creepy cat story here soon when we get to a more traditional and modern ongoing ghost story. So I think the first thing I thought of when I thought of Irish folklore was the banshee. Didn't really know too much about it, that a banshee is a negative thing that screams. That's pretty much all I knew. And in a lot of ways, that's all you really need to know. The first written recording of a banshee was is in 13. See, I keep wanting to say 18. It was in 1380, and the descriptions vary quite a bit. The more I was reading about this, the more it was conjuring imagery of all sorts of other bits of folklore, whether it was La Llorona or a siren song, or in Hawaii, the legends of Pele, because she's seen in different ways. Like Pele is sometimes seen as a beautiful woman, and sometimes she's seen as a haggard old woman who's hunched over and kind of creepy looking. So it runs the gamut, and banshees are the same way. And frequently they're also, and I didn't know about this, they're reported to being between 1 and 4 feet tall, which links her to being associated with fairies. And fairy lore is such a huge part of all of the legends of Ireland. Also, if you go to Other Side Podcast/blog and go down to F, you'll see a big blog entry written by Wendy Lynn Stotts about fairies. So check that out. And fairies are still something that I really don't know a lot about. But she's sometimes seen as a banshee, that is seen as like mother of fairies, or a protector of the mounds of fairies. So the original stories, we'll talk about a woman that's in the neighborhood, in your town, in your little village. And while you might have people way out foraging or hunting or exploring, she would somehow know if they've come into danger, if they've passed away. So she will be able to, like, her scream, or even her just conveying the story, will tell people that, hey, so-and-so is dead, even though news hasn't officially reached the village. Which, that as it goes on over centuries, as the stories merge, it seems like she's the one causing those deaths. So even to this day, people believe that encountering a banshee or hearing the banshee's wail will be a premonition of impending death. However, it started out as someone that just happened to know about death that already happened before you knew it happened. It's interesting that a banshee is usually, historically, was associated with certain families. Like each family would have their own banshee assigned to them. Again, in a ways, makes me think of guardian angels. We got a beautiful sunset. Maybe I'll let some sun in as it goes down. And it's usually families whose last name starts with an O apostrophe, a Mac, M-A-C, or Mick, M-C. But apparently all of those clans have all died off by now. So therefore, all of these banshees could be just roaming the Irish countryside, looking to latch on freelance work. Um, and there's a banshee named Eibel, A-I-B-E-L-L, who apparently is kind of higher ranking in the banshee community. She oversees a number of banshees. She plays a harp. Irish music is such a fascinating thing, and shout out to Wendy, who's right now out in California furthering her drumming career, but she's an Irish session player. So I'm going to learn maybe more about some of her what she's playing. She's a fiddle player. But there are multiple stories from Irish folklore, even beyond the banshee, that talks about harp music. And this particular one, this banshee, Eibel, plays a harp, but if you hear it, you will not hear much more after that. We will perish somewhat soon. So that is one song you do not want to hear. And again, that makes me think a lot of siren folklore, where there's the sirens on shore or on dangerous rocks that are luring ship captains to their doom, to their demise. Another interesting folklore, and this I wanted to bring this one up as well, especially because the comment that we let off the show with talking about shapeshifters talks about a puka, which oddly enough, coincidentally enough, in Hawaiian language, puka means hole. Like there's a hole in something. I don't know, language. So a puka is a shapeshifter, often seen as a black horse or goat, which of course makes you think of the witch with the black goat. They sometimes try to take human form, but they never quite seem to get it right. Like they'll still have a tail, or they'll have hooves or furry legs. It gets into all sorts of pan style imagery as well. And pukas are generally considered negative as well. There's so many like metaphysical dark figures over in Irish lore. Some people go so far as to call them vampiric man-eaters. So not only are they jerks, like they'll let your livestock out and just cause general destruction, but they'll even just eat people alive. Moving forward all the way up to the 1700s, we have to talk about, I think if I were to go to Ireland to ghost hunt one location, I would go to the Hellfire Club. I noticed I got my notes on top of, oh, there we go. Wendy has chimed, more music. There's a tune called The Banshee. I'll have to hear about that. Not aware of it summoning anything. I sure hope it doesn't, as I play it often. We will play with that. We will experiment with that. Thanks for commenting. I didn't have my screen open for comments. But that would be fun or interesting and dangerous if we can ever get out to Ireland to play the song The Banshee at places where maybe the Banshee had been observed, or any place where the legend links to in modern days. Anyway, the Hellfire Club, whew, oh my gosh, there's so much about the Hellfire Club. This is a place that I would love to go ghost hunting, although I hear that it's a little bit disappointing because it is, while it is a building that was constructed in the 1700s and its ruins are intact, even with the roof over it today, it is such a common place to go hiking to that it's tough to get quiet time there, that sometimes the place feels like an amusement park because the kids are running around and laughing and playing, which is not the vibe you're going for. Especially when you go to a place called the Hellfire Club. So this is outside of Dublin, on top of Mount Pilier. Yeah, I think that's how you'd say it. It was constructed to be a hunting lodge, basically. And I just keep going back to the Rocky Horror line, a hunting lodge for rich weirdos. So it was built by some affluent people, early 1700s, politicians and the like. And, well, they didn't use it so much as a hunting lodge. It was a place, and it was away from town. It was up on a hill. Even today, it's a long hike up a steep hill to try to get to this location. So you're not going to get curiosity seekers. People are going to go there with purpose. And while they're up there, they can get away with just about anything. And so they were occultists, you could say. They were not trying to summon the devil. They were not satanic, but they did. It really reminds me a lot of Aleister Crowley's ideas of, hey, if it feels good, do it. If it brings you personal joy, everything's allowed. And so they really they worship Dionysus. They thought, let's see, black magic, sex magic, and wine. Let's worship wine and have a great old time. Which, hey, if you're doing it on your own terms, that's fine. Whatever you want to do, whatever blows your skirt up, I guess. But apparently, according to legend, at least, and it's probably the fact that this is this hunting lodge for rich weirdos, just like we look at Bohemian Grove up in Washington State. What is going on back there? Powerful people are going back there and partying. They must be getting at some really dark things. So legends began to come out about rituals that involved human sacrifice and things of the like. The King George the First outlawed that place. Hellfire Club first opened in 1719. King George quickly outlawed it, but it was so remote that they didn't police it at all. An interesting thing happened. The Black Lodge. It's a great comparison. Who knows? Maybe there's some inspiration taken from some of this stuff. Yeah, I bet. Well, now I can finally maybe listen to that Twin Peaks podcast that See You on the Other Side did. I had to keep myself in the dark because I finally watched that show myself, and to find some of the inspiration for the weirdness that was Twin Peaks. So the place was in use for a bit, about 6 years or so. Then it went dormant for a while. Legends kept coming back up around it, and then it went back into service as this ritualistic, this dark magic type place in 1771. And it was used for these similar purposes, again, including legends of summoning demons and human sacrifice and cannibalism. One of the big legends is that a farmer's daughter was abducted, and not only was she tortured and used in these ritualistic ways, but then she was eaten by the inhabitants. You would hope that's just legend and people in town making up stories about the weirdos up on the hill, but who in the world knows? And so the building has been a vacant ruin since 1800. Oh, but wait, let's go back to the construction of this building. So a guy, and I go, shoot, I don't have his name in front of me, was looking for a place to build this lodge. And he found this awesome place up on the top of a hill. He thought, this is going to be perfect, except there's one problem. There is a tomb here. There are ancient burials. It's an ancient burial ground. And there are structures here memorializing those who had passed away and that are buried there. Well, let's just destroy it, naturally, step one. And, they didn't have a cellar or anything, so they're not going to be digging anyway. So they destroyed the monument and built right on top of the hill there, even using the stone that they had destroyed. So the building material was actually the monument that could be considered holy. And shortly after the building was constructed, with a wooden roof on top, a huge storm came and ripped the wooden roof off. Many people thought it was a sign saying you shouldn't have done that, basically. And so then they rebuilt the roof using stone, which is the same stone that's the roof today. Let's jump ahead a little bit to more modern times. There is a legend of a black cat that is seen patrolling the grounds in the woods nearby in the structure itself, but instead of ears, it has horns. And if you were traveling with holy water, which apparently, according to one legend, a priest was going up there to try to bless and clear the land, and came across this horned animal, he threw holy water on this cat, and it just ripped itself to shreds before vanishing, apparently. So travel with holy water. If you've got cat allergies, holy water is going to be your antidote on this one. But again, it's oh yeah, in 2016, so just a couple of years ago, there's a 26-year-old guy up there, and he randomly went around stabbing people. 3 people were stabbed. One of them apparently very severely, and it kind of seemed he's probably a mentally unstable person. Let's be honest. But who knows? Maybe he was a mentally unstable person, and there was dark energy up there that was able to possess him. We don't know. But there are other legends of people going up there to, just go on a hike, maybe to ghost hunt, and they come home and they feel the oppression of having an attachment, and they'll even start to show scars, show scratch marks that just appear on their body, caused by some unseen hand. So let's finish up with a UFO story. I haven't talked about aliens at all. Oh no, I'm not going to finish up with something else, but I will talk about UFOs first. I thought it'd be interesting. I've never heard about Irish UFO stories. Actually, I've never heard about just about anything that I'm talking about tonight. But so I started to search for most famous UFO tales in Ireland, and wow, I did not have to go far. Unlike all these other stories that start in the 1300s, we are going all the way back into the time vault to November of 2018. So just this past November, there was a rash of UFO sightings all across or all around the Dublin area and kind of across the southern portion of the country. And the crescendo really was on November 12th when at least 3 different commercial pilots in flight witnessed strange objects in the sky. One person said that, and I'm going to post a link in the description as soon as I finish here. I wish I could do it live, but I don't think I can. You know what? I could put it in the comments. Don't click this until I'm done talking, please. And I'm going to read some of it, but you can hear the radar tower, the radio control tower, having conversation with multiple pilots that are reporting seeing strange things, and they don't seem alarmed, but they're just curious what it is. One person says, "Well, it was not on a collision course with me, but I'm just curious. What are you seeing on your radar? Are there military drills going on right here?" Or this is November 9th, sorry, not the 12th. So I'll start to read this article. The link is from a Washington Post article. There's a lot of articles out there about this. On the morning of the 9th of November, a pilot of British Airways from Montreal called air traffic control in Shannon to report seeing an object moving past her aircraft. Asked if there were any military exercises taking place off the west coast of Ireland. It was moving so fast, she said. It came up on our left-hand side and then rapidly veered north. It was a bright light and disappeared at a very high speed. You'll hear on that recording another individual. There's one Virgin Islands pilot, and I think maybe another British Airways pilot. Talked about seeing multiple objects, I should say, on the same trajectory. And one of the pilots eventually chimes in, "Oh God, I'm glad I wasn't the only one that saw that." So nothing appeared on the radar, which is also the interesting thing. We have multiple pilots you've got who knows what kind of serious experience seeing things that they'd never seen before, and it didn't appear on radar. At this point, this was big news when it came out, and it made people start to question things that they saw themselves earlier. Just a couple days earlier than that, a man was driving to work in the pre-dawn hours, so it's dark out, and he saw some strange light in the sky, moving strangely, unbelievably fast. And you could see in the dash cam video, other cars apparently like slamming on the brakes as they see this thing moving as well. And he kind of brushed it off and didn't think too much of it until the news came out about the pilot seeing this. And then he thought, well, maybe this was something. There are some, just like the Phoenix Lights, the triangular, the 3 dots seen flying in the sky. There's some really wild video if you go out there and look for it. And they kind of seem to eventually come into one and just go cruising right along the horizon line from being first higher up in the sky. 2 days after the pilot saw everything, a woman was at Dublin Airport and she filmed a strange light flying through the sky. Again, this was nothing that was reported on radar. In the video, you can't definitively say, hey, that's a UFO, but at the same time, I've never seen anything like it. So it is a UFO in that sense. We can't say it's alien, but it's something. And I got to shout out the Irish Mirror, which anytime the publication, the Mirror, is your source, take it for what it's worth. But this is a great bit that they dug up. At this time, there's a bookie company called Paddy Power, Paddy Power. They're an online bookie, so you can place bets on all sorts of bizarre things. When the year opened, they were offering 50-1 odds that this will be the year that alien life will be discovered here on Earth. I love that you could place bets on these things. And 50-1, I thought the odds would be more drastic than that. However, after all of these sightings happened in Ireland, they diminished the odds from 50-1 to 5-1, meaning that they were likely. A Paddy Power spokesperson said, quote, We've always believed other life forms exist, but after this week's revelations, we're convinced it's about to be confirmed. It makes sense for intruders to cross terrestrial borders of the skies in this neck of the planet, where our heads are turned right now by Brexit and their housing crisis. So that's always kind of fascinating. The idea that people are going to be too worked up with their mundane day-to-day lives that, especially now, we are so focused on other things, we're not going to be looking up to the sky and wondering. And when it comes to possible explanations for what was seen, they also gave odds on that. It was a 10-1 that it was a shooting star that people were seeing. They gave a 100-1 odd that it was a Chinese lantern, and a 16-1 on it being a military aircraft. I need to subscribe to the Patty Power newsletter to see what else they take action on. That's just fascinating. Maybe they can be a sponsor. And lastly, very lastly, we'll go through this one very quickly, because the more I looked into it, the more I saw there was nothing there. One of the first viral videos happened in Mobile, Alabama, 2006. And again, we're talking about Irish legends. So yes, we are going to talk about the leprechaun that people in Mobile, Alabama saw up in a tree. And again, this was a viral video just because how quotable so many elements of it was, the eyewitness accounts, just the joy of it all. It was like a party, and people were seeing a cryptid. Some were thinking at the time, and the idea was that there was a leprechaun that was up in this tree in Crichton, this town, maybe a suburb or a neighborhood of Mobile called Crichton, and they would see up in the tree at night, and if they shine their light on it, it would vanish. And there's even people, one cautious individual even brought out a rare leprechaun flute, which was reportedly passed down thousands of years from his great-great-grandfather, who was Irish. Tracking down the leprechaun has proved to be difficult, as it only appears at night and finds a way to hide itself whenever light is pointed at it. However, jump ahead many years, a local radio station decides to dig into this a bit more and started interviewing these eyewitnesses, re-interviewing the eyewitnesses. And that's always when you get down to it. Turns out there was an African-American dwarf that went by the nickname Midget Sean. Sean, at least, is an Irish name. The interviewers were brought to meet the man, who recounted the story of a prank he played on a local community in which he dressed as a leprechaun, climbed a tree, and hid, while his friends alerted others that there was a leprechaun. So it was a coordinated thing, and it created the appropriate mass hysteria. There is still a website out there that is selling T-shirts with the lines that made it onto the news, the fun eyewitness recollections. Anyway, so that is a quick look at Irish lore. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to take a short break, maybe not too short, because I got to get some water. I am talking myself parched, but we are moving on to the letter J, and we're going to talk about two really legendary women who left ghost stories behind, one of them associated with the Battle of Gettysburg. Thanks for watching. Please do comment. Go to facebook.com/what's your ghost story to vote on the letter K. I need your suggestions. What will I talk about for the letter K? And I'm going to be back really soon, so I'm not even going to give the full send off. Thanks for watching.